everybody. I'm Ashley from Nourishing Generations, and I'm so excited to have all of you join us again for another great cooking class. I'm joined again by my friend, Chef Sky. Hi, Sky. How are you today?
Hi everyone, Chef Sky here. I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be back for another class, and I'm really excited to make some healthy sweets today.
That's great. I'm really excited about our class today. Today we're going to talk about healthy sweets. Now, if you are out there like me, I have a sweet tooth and I love having a little bit of something sweet every day. So today we're going to talk about what are healthy sweets and which ones we should try to avoid or cut back on to make sure we stay healthy. So let's talk a little bit about what are sweet foods. Sweet foods are usually made of carbohydrates, and that's why we crave them, because carbohydrates are a great way to get quick energy. So things like fruit and honey are a really nice sweetener that tends to give us energy. Unfortunately today, most sweets are made from refined sugars or artificial sweeteners. These tend to have a negative effect on the body and can even make us sick if we eat too many of them. So let's talk about the different kinds of sugars and sweeteners and learn how to know the difference. So there are three different kinds of sugars and sweeteners we're going to talk about today. The first one are the healthy sweeteners, the ones we want to eat more of and that are really delicious because they come from real whole foods or natural sources in nature. These are going to be fruits like apples and berries and cherries, or honey and maple syrup, which come from different parts of nature, like the bees who make our honey and the trees that help us make maple syrup, which is one of my favorite sweeteners. And then we can also use things like dried fruits or dates or figs to sweeten up different recipes. So there's lots of creative ways to make food sweet and healthy. And then there's processed sugar, which we want to try to avoid. These include things like processed and refined white sugars, high fructose corn syrup, and even other things we see on food labels that are just named like fructose and other words that you may not recognize. And so if it's something you don't know what it is, you probably want to try to avoid it. These sugars can really spike our blood sugar and make us feel really hyper and really active at first, but then we tend to crash really hard because there's not a lot of nutrients in there that keep us healthy. The third kind of sweetener we're going to talk about today are artificial sweeteners. So these are made in a lab by scientists, and it's usually used to substitute sugar and other natural sweeteners in a way to reduce calories or be a low-calorie food. But unfortunately, there's a downside to these. They don't really work well. They confuse our body. The body doesn't really understand. And so at times it can actually make us gain weight, it can cause headaches and negative side effects, or even make us addicted and want us to crave things more and more. So artificial sweeteners are found in things like diet soda or other diet foods, in gum, and also in those little packages you see sometimes at restaurants to put in your coffee or drinks. A lot of those are artificial sweeteners that tend not to be as good for us. A couple of these artificial sweeteners you might see written on the label are aspartame, sucrose, and also saccharin. So these are ones we want to try to avoid and instead go back to those healthy sweeteners like honey, maple syrup, and unrefined cane sugar can also work in small doses. So those are the different sweeteners that we have available. So in our cooking class today, we're going to cook with those healthy sweeteners and want to make sure that we're using those healthy sweeteners as much as possible. So Chef Sky, what is our healthy sweet treat for today? What are we making?
Today's recipe is going to be delicious oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. We're going to make them with some different sweeteners that are really healthy and really delicious, and we're going to throw some dried fruits in there as well. So these are going to be some really great cookies, and I'm really excited to get started.
So what are some of the reasons why we need to be careful about what kind of sweeteners we use and how much sugar we eat? Number one is because sugar can be addictive. Once we start eating sugar, sometimes we want to eat more and more and more of it, and that can lead to problems like weight gain, or also cause mood imbalances where our moods go up and down, where we go really high when we eat sugar and then we come crashing down and make us feel sad or even really tired and sleepy. Other reasons is that it can cause serious diseases like diabetes, where our blood sugar balance gets really out of whack and the body can't regulate itself, and that can lead to some serious problems. So what are some of the best practices for eating sweets? Try to choose real foods like fruits, honey, molasses, maple syrup, or dried fruits like dates and figs when you're wanting something sweet. If you are gonna indulge in something with sugar, like a white sugar, like cakes or cookies, try to eat small amounts and let them be a special treat. And also, try to avoid as many artificial sweeteners as possible. In the end, it's better to eat sugar than an artificial sugar that our body can't understand and can't process. Also, when it comes to something to drink, try to drink water as much as possible. Avoid sodas, and especially soda with artificial sweeteners like diet soda. And if you're going to drink juice, try to get nice, clean, pure juices and drink small amounts. Oftentimes, my grandmother loves to use these little juice glasses that are just a few ounces. That's all you really need to settle that sweet tooth and enjoy that juice. So it's important to remember why we love sweet foods. We want to make sure we eat them in moderation. That means having a little sweet treat at the end of the day or as a snack here and there is just fine, and we really enjoy those, and we want to have that nice sweetness, but we don't want to go overboard and eat too much. So make sure you're watching how much sugar and sweeteners you are eating every day.
We all know the first thing we do before we get cooking in the kitchen, we gotta wash those hands. And you know how long you wash them for? 20 seconds. And today, just like other days, we're going to be using our oven, so we're going to preheat our oven as well. Today, we're going to be preheating our oven to 375 degrees. So let's all go and wash our hands for 20 seconds. Let's sing happy birthday out loud to ourselves 2 times. And then either you or you can get an adult's help if you need, and you're going to go ahead and preheat your oven to 375 degrees. So I'll give you a minute to go and do those things now, and we'll meet back here. Great. Now that our ovens are preheated and we're all washed up and ready to go, what's the next step? We already know it. It's to do our mise en place, to make sure that everything is in its place. So let's talk about the equipment and the ingredients that we're going to need today. For equipment, all that we're going to need today are 2 large bowls, like this, a whisk, you'll need a large spoon, and a fork for mixing ingredients together. You'll also need measuring cups and measuring spoons. You'll also need a spatula to pull the cookies off of our sheet later. And you'll need a butter knife to cut our butter. And our baking sheet, just like we used for our pizza and for our granola. For ingredients, we'll need 2 sticks of butter, and these need to be softened. So either you take them out at least an hour or 2 before you make your recipe, or if they're still cold in the fridge, put them in the microwave for 10 seconds, but not more than 10 seconds. I promise if you put them in more than 10 seconds, the butter will melt. You don't want melted butter. You just want it to be nice and soft so that it's easy to mix in with the other ingredients. You'll need coconut sugar. Coconut sugar is an excellent alternative to regular white sugar. It's still super sweet, and it's much more healthy for us. So look for opportunities to use coconut sugar when you're making baked goods or other sweet things. We'll need dates. Now, you can make this recipe without the dates, but the dates really add a whole different sweetness and texture that is just so delicious. Plus, they're packed full of nutrition. So, dates are a super great addition to this. The recipe calls for chopped dates. I'll show you how to chop these up later. You'll need 2 eggs. You've probably got eggs in your fridge at home, so just go ahead and grab 2 of them. You'll need some rolled oats, just like we used for our granola. Those whole grain oats are just delicious in here. You'll need some whole wheat flour. Whole wheat flour is an excellent alternative to bleached white flour. It tastes just as good in baked goods, and it retains a lot more of the nutrients that occur in the natural flour, in the grain of the wheat. You'll need a bit of baking soda. Usually you'll find this in your refrigerator at home as well. We'll also need some salt. We'll be using dried cranberries today as our dried fruit in this, but you could use different dried fruits at home, whatever your favorite is. But the cranberries go really well with the chocolate and the oats, so today we're going to use dried cranberries. And last, but certainly not least, we're going to need chocolate chips. So the recipe calls for semi-sweet chocolate, and that's what you want to go for. Milk chocolate is going to wind up being too sweet. So go for that dark chocolate or that semi-sweet chocolate, and you're going to come out with a perfect cookie. And that's all the ingredients we're gonna need today. So now that we've got all our equipment together and all our ingredients ready to go, we're ready to start cooking. The first step is to mix together our butter and our sugar. So grab one of your large bowls, grab your whisk, and grab your butter and that coconut sugar, and let's start getting mixing. The recipe calls for 2/3 of a cup of butter. Now butter is very easy to measure because it conveniently comes with the measurements written right on the side of the bar. You can see it starts with a 1/4 cup, it has 1/3 of a cup, and a whole stick of butter is a 1/2 cup. So we want 2/3 of a cup. 1/3 is here. That's why we need 2 sticks of butter, because 1 stick of butter is not enough. So what you can do is you can take a butter knife, or you can even just open it and use your fingers if you don't have a butter knife, and cut it right at the 1/3 cup line, right there, okay? Look at that. Should be nice and easy to cut because it's already soft. And we're gonna do that with both of them, okay? Now that's all the butter that we're going to use today, so the rest of this can go right back in the refrigerator. Now that our butter's measured out, let's go ahead and put that into our bowl. Just go ahead and toss it all right in there. Now that we've got our butter in our bowl, let's go ahead and measure out our sugar. The recipe calls for a 1/4 of a cup of sugar, so that's the one we're going to use. I've got my sugar right here. Make sure you fill it all the way up to the top there, okay? All the way up to the top, but not over. With baking, you have to be very exact. Exactly a 1/4 cup of sugar, and that goes right in the bowl with our butter. Once we've got those both in the bowl, we take our whisk and we're going to go ahead and we're just going to break up all of this butter and we're going to mix it all together with the sugar. This is going to take some time and you may need another utensil like a fork or a knife to clear this out. And we're going to keep on mixing it until it all combines and you're going to see how it looks at the end. So let's go ahead and start mixing now. So let's... Woo! That was quite a workout. And now you see why you want your butter to be soft beforehand. So it should look like this when it's all nice and mixed together. Nice and soft and smooth. Can easily come out of the whisk if you tap it. See? And then we can put that aside. The next thing we're going to do is to chop our dates to mix into our butter mixture. So we'll need our knife, that same 1/4 measuring cup. I just wiped it out real quick. And we'll need our dates. So let's pull a few dates out. I'm going to start with 3. We might need more, we might not. Now dates are very soft and easy to cut, but they do have a pit in the center. So you just cut it open. You find that hard pit in the center. You pull that out and you just put that aside. Let's do that with a few dates right now. Now look how I'm holding the date with my finger over the top and cutting through the center like that. See? That's the safest way to cut through something without making your fingers be in danger. Now we're going to use our claw that we learned before and the same grip we learned before. Just slice these dates in half, put them so the flat side is down. See? Let's give ourselves some room to work with here. And now we're going to cut our dates. So what we're going to do is cut them into, using our claw, cut them into strips like this. You can go slower than me. going to cut them into little strips, all of them. It's very sticky, so take your time, go slow, and be careful. Then you take some of the strips and turn them sideways and cut them using that claw into little pieces, okay? Very careful. It's this nice, mushy, delicious paste now. So let's take our dates, fill up a 1/4 cup of dates. Make sure you press them in there to fill all the edges. I'll make a little bit extra, but that's okay. We're going to take our dates and we're going to put them in the bowl with our butter. So here's our butter mixture. Here are our dates, and we'll also want our eggs right now as well. So here those are. So now we're going to add our eggs and our dates right into our butter mixture. When cracking an egg, you want to first dink it on the side of the pan, like I've just done, or your bowl, and you're going to want to pull it open like that. These shells make great compost. They can be fed to animals sometimes as well, so go ahead and keep those. Once again, we dink it on the side of our bowl, make a little crack like that, then pull it open carefully, trying to not get any shells in. If you get shells in there, it's okay, just go ahead and pull them out. And now we add our dates as well. Get all that goodness in there. Every last bit. And I'm using a fork for this part because I think it's easier than using a whisk at this point to break up those dates, because they're very sticky, so they're gonna get stuck in a whisk. So let's take some time and mix this all together now until it gets nice and well combined. After your dates are nice and well combined in there, I recommend putting the fork aside and using the whisk for the rest of it. This is what we're looking for here. A nice, well-combined mixture. The dates are all well combined in there and evenly distributed, the pieces, and then we can put that aside. The next step is to measure out our dry ingredients. For this, we'll need our other large bowl, our measuring cups and spoons. We'll need our oats, our flour, our salt, and our baking soda. So we've got our bowl ready to go. We're going to put our ingredients in there. Let's start with our oats. 1½ cups. So I've got my 1 cup and I've got my ½ cup. Let's start with the 1 cup. All nice and full. That goes right in the bowl. And then the ½ cup. A little more in there. There we go. Put that aside. Then we do the same amount with the flour. We start with our 1 cup measuring cup. Fill that up all the way. Use our finger, or you can even use a butter knife to level it out. Then our ½ cup. Next, we're adding our salt. It calls for ½ teaspoon of salt. I've actually got a 1/4 teaspoon here, so I need 2 of those. Lastly, let's put in our baking soda. It calls for 1 teaspoon of baking soda, so I've got that here. Now, an easy way to measure our baking soda is to use this little piece of cardboard right here to level out your spoon. Look, and it's perfectly flat. And that can go right into our bowl. Then we can clean our whisk from earlier, or we can grab a new one and we'll mix all these dry ingredients together. If you have just cleaned your whisk, make sure it's nice and dry. Now let's go ahead and mix all those ingredients until they're fully combined. And there we go. Now we can set that aside. The final step is to mix together our wet ingredients and our dry ingredients. So we'll need our bowl of wet ingredients, we'll need our bowl of dry ingredients, and we'll need our spoon. For this recipe, we're gonna add the dry ingredients into the bowl with the wet ingredients. And we're gonna do it in 3 or 4 separate batches. So just take some of it, a little bit like that, and then mix in that part, okay? You wanna be nice and gentle, if you can, with this batter, because the more you mix it, the tougher the texture is gonna be. And you want these to be nice and light and delicious. So we're gonna mix it just until it's barely combined, see, like that. And now we're gonna add a little bit more. We're gonna mix that bit in. Take your time here, this can be messy. It's okay to make a mess, but we also have to clean up a mess that we make. So let's try not to. It's really starting to look like cookie dough now, isn't it? Okay, so we've got that combined. Now let's go ahead and add the rest of our dry ingredients and get this fully combined. And once it's fully combined, it should look like this, basically like a nice cookie dough. Let's get all that good cookie dough off of our spoon. And the last step is going to be to add our chocolate and our cranberries. So let's go get those now. So here we've got our batter and we've got our chocolate chips and our cranberries. The recipe calls for 2/3 of a cup of each. So I've got my 1/3 cup here, and let's go ahead and put that in now. 1 and 2 of chocolate. 1 and 2 of the dried cranberries. And now you can use your spoon or your fingers at this point to mix this all together. I'm going to use my fingers. I love getting messy, and I think it's easier with my fingers, actually. Uh-oh, I lost a bit. Just make sure you get all the way down to the bottom, okay? Be careful here, the bowl wants to move around, as you can see. And that is our finished cookie dough. Now we can pull out our cookie sheet and our spoon, and we can go ahead and get this ready to go in the oven. So here we've got our cookie sheet, and we've got our dough, and we've got a small spoon, and we're just going to take 1 spoonful at a time and put it right onto the cookie sheet like that. You can form it into a little bit of a round ball like that, and that is just perfect, and that's ready to go in the oven. So let's go ahead and do the dough 1 spoonful at a time. And you're going to want to leave 1 to 2 inches between your cookies because they're going to spread out when they cook. So you don't want them to mush into each other and just become one giant cookie. So you can go 3 or 4 cookies across. I'm going to do 4. You want them all to be about the same size. So this one is very small, this one is bigger, so I'm actually going to put a little bit more here. If one is tiny and one is very big, then that one is going to be burnt and the bigger one is not going to be cooked all the way. So let's go ahead and fill up our baking sheets now, and then we can get them in the oven. Okay, so here's our full cookie sheet, all full of cookies, ready to go in the oven, spaced out so they have some room. And I've got a bit of cookie dough left over as well. If you have another cookie sheet, you can fill it up and put 2 in at once. If you want, you can wrap this up in plastic and it can stay in the fridge for a couple of weeks and you can make cookies next week. Or you could just wait for these to cook, bring it out, and then put these on the same sheet and do another batch afterwards. Whatever you want to do. So right now, let's go ahead and take these over to our ovens that we preheated earlier to 375 degrees and put them in. And we're going to set our timer for 10 minutes. The recipe says 10 to 12 minutes. That means we check them after 10 minutes and see if they're done. And if not, we might need to leave them for 2 more minutes. So let's go ahead and set our timers for 10 minutes and get these in the oven now.
Hi everyone, it's Ashley. So today I'm going to be leading our fun fitness activity. We're going to do some yoga today. What I love about yoga is that there's 4 main principles of health that it helps with on our bodies. It develops strength, flexibility, our balance, and also our breath. So we're going to work on all 4 of those today and see what you think. First, let's start by just standing with our feet just slightly apart, about hip distance. Relax your shoulders, and we'll start to think about that breath. So maybe for a moment, just close your eyes or take a soft gaze out in front of you and start to breathe in and out through your nose and try to keep your mouth gently closed. So take a few deep breaths in and then out through the nose. 2 more like that. Breathe in. Breathe out. Last time, deep breath in and out. Now see if you can keep that nice steady breath throughout our practice today. Take your arms and lift them out as you breathe in. And then gently dive over the legs. Bend your knees if you need to and reach towards the floor. Now inhale, come up about halfway. You put your hands on your knees or your thighs. And then exhale, release down and kind of hold here for a moment so you feel a stretch through the backs of your legs, maybe your lower back. And allow your arms to just dangle for a moment. And then come back up, reverse that move, out and up, like you're on a big circle with the hands, and then bring your hands down in front of your heart. Let's do 2 more like that. Breathe in. And on the exhale, dive forward, like you're diving into a swimming pool. Inhale, lift up just halfway, hands can come to your legs. And then exhale, fold over, release your head, your neck, your arms. Now coming back up, breathe in, draw that big circle, and then bring that into your heart center. 1 more time, breathe in. Then exhale, breathe out, dive forward. Halfway lift on the inhale. And exhale, release. Inhale, draw your circle, come up all the way to the top, reach for the sky. And then bring your hands down. So good, everyone. Take your feet wide into a straddle. 1 more time, lift your arms up. And then this time as you dive forward, bring your fingertips either to the floor or maybe you want to place it on some books or a block. And just start to relax slowly into the stretch. Really feel the inner thighs stretching, maybe your back or your hamstrings are stretching as well. You can always bend your knees if the floor feels far away. And relax your head and your neck. If this feels good, just stay like this. If you want an extra stretch, start to interlace your fingers and reach your fingers towards the sky and stretch out your shoulders as well. So here we're working on our stretching, our flexibility, also some of our balance if you're lifting your hands up. And then exhale, lower the fingertips back down. Take a big bend in your right knee and lift your left toes. Stretch through that inner leg a little deeper now. And then we're going to start to swoosh back and forth, kind of like a little ninja. Moving from side to side. If you want a little extra work here, you want to build a little strength, maybe try a little something. You might fall, you might not. Lift your hands and see if you can do it without putting your fingers down. It's okay if you wibble or wobble. And then come back to center. Fingertips can come down. And slowly draw that big circle as you come up. Hands down to your heart center. You put your hands on your hips and bring those toes in and hop to the center. Wiggle it out. We'll let it all go. Okay, turn to one side. Lift your arms up. This time we're going to come down, bend your knees to start. We're working into our downward dog pose. Walk your hands forward until you're making a bit of an angle and lift your hips up and press your heels down. Maybe your legs go straight, maybe they stay bent. Whatever feels good for you. But start to lift your hips a little bit and then press your heels and your feet down to the floor. Check in with that breath. Are you still breathing nice and good through the nose? Breathe in. Breathe out. One more time, breathe in. Exhale, let it out. Coming into our strength move for today, come into your plank pose. So it's like the top of a push-up. Your shoulders in line with your hands. Maybe bring your knees down if you need a little support, a modification. Or if you're feeling like you want to challenge, lift your knees and see if you can hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press your hips back to that down dog and just walk yourself in, feet to hands. Gently roll up to a standing position. You can wiggle that out one more time. We're going to finish with our balance pose. It's a tree pose. Your left foot's going to stay nice and strong. Make sure your foot is in line with your hip. So you don't want your foot wide. You want it right there underneath your leg. Turn your right knee out and bring your heel to touch your ankle. Your hands can come together and imagine you're pressing your hands together as well as pressing your hips together energetically. So you're in tree pose right now. This is perfect. You might be a little wobbly. You know, sometimes trees will blow in the wind. That's okay. Just feel the pressure of your hands together. Just feel a little more stable. Maybe you lift your toes up and now we balance on one leg, foot on your shin. And if you want to get a little taller, grow your tree up. Reach for the sky. Take one more breath here. And then slowly bring your hands down, set your foot down, wiggle it out a little bit, let it go. And we'll do it on the second side for our last pose. So again, turn your left knee out, stand tall on your right leg now, bring your heel to touch your ankle, and now you're in the pose. This is our tree. So you might just stay here starting to practice that balance, or you might start to play with lifting that foot and balancing on one leg. If you're ready, grow your branches, reach for the sunshine, and hold here. And then gently exhale, bring your hands down, bring your foot down, and wiggle it out one more time. All right. That is our yoga practice for today. We're just going to finish with a little more breathing to finish up the circle of our yoga class. So we always like to come back around and check in that breath one more time. So standing nice and tall, maybe you close your eyes gently. Breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Breathe in. Breathe out. Last time, deep breath in. And this time, let it out of your mouth, just sigh, go. Open your eyes. All right, that was our fitness activity for today. Thanks so much for trying this out with me. I hope you enjoyed our yoga class. Let's head back to the kitchen and see if our recipe is ready and see what Chef Sky has for us next.
So now our cookies have been in the oven for 10 minutes. Always use a hot pad when you're touching hot pans like this. But after 10 minutes, we check them and we see how they look. You can see here, these are still very soft to the touch. And if you look underneath one, it's not really brown at all on the bottom. It's still pretty much the same color. So I think these are gonna need those 2 more minutes. So let's go ahead and set our timers for 2 minutes and put them back in the oven for 2 more minutes. Then we'll pull them out. So now our cookies have been in the oven for 12 minutes. And as you can see, they're starting to develop a bit of a crust over the top. When I touch them, they don't immediately break. And let's look at that one that we turned over earlier. It's getting a little bit more color on the bottom. So are the others. Oh, oopsie. You can see there, nice brown color on the bottom. Those are some finished cookies. Look at that. The chocolate's melting all over my fingers. These are going to be so gooey and delicious. Let's use our spatula to remove them from the tray now so they can cool, and then we will chow down. So if you have a wire rack at home to cool these on, that's great. But if not, you can just take your spatula and carefully place them onto a plate like this. And look at that, a delicious plate of freshly baked, healthy oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. All right, now let's taste one of these hot, gooey, fresh cookies.
Let's recap what we learned today. We want to use healthy sweeteners whenever possible when we're baking or cooking or choosing sweets at the store. So we want to look for things that are made with natural sweeteners like honey and maple syrup, coconut sugar, dates, or eat whole pieces of fruit is another great way to get that sweet treat and have something yummy and delicious. We want to try to avoid some of the other sweeteners that can have a damaging effect on our body. Sometimes they can make us feel unhealthy and drain our energy in the end. These are going to be things like processed sugars like high fructose corn syrup or artificial sweeteners, which we want to try to avoid as much as possible.
All right, everyone. I hope you had a great time learning about healthy sweets today with us and making these delicious cookies. I know I love these cookies, and I'm going to go eat some more of them right now. So thank you so much for being here with us for the Nourishing Generations cooking class. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for joining Nourishing Generations for this amazing cooking class. Thanks to Chef Sky for another awesome recipe. We have some handouts to go along with the class that you can do in your own time, and I hope you come back and see us again and see what we're cooking the next time around. Have a great day, everybody.